Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. It's Sunday the 30th of November. I'm Phil Carroll.
I'm Kevin Hornsby. Does that mean it's December tomorrow?
Oh my word, yeah. Welcome back to Blighty, Kev. Are you feeling the cold and the wet should I say?
You know, to be honest, it's like a yin yang, isn't it? Because when I walk into my mother's house, like the heating's on, it's well insulated, and it's bloody boiling. I'm walking around with a t-shirt and shorts, but then the minute you step outside, it's like another world. I was traveling when I landed in Manchester Airport yesterday. Oh my goodness me. It was absolutely pissing it down and grey. It was almost like it was the night, and I arrived at midday and then got the train to Liverpool, woolly hat on the train, the whole works, because it was bloody Baltic, even though it was only like 7 or 8 degrees, but it was freezing. Yeah. So yeah, it's beautiful weather. Why would you want to live here is the question. And on top of that, they want to take all your money off you as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the news story, there's only really one in the UK that's dominated the headlines, and obviously that's the budget. Rachel from accounts. I mean, let's have a look at some of the kind of like the big ticket items on there. I mean, what are the big ones, Kev, that we should? I mean, obviously.
Well, let's just say that the budget is exactly what a socialist Labour government would do. Yeah. Right? We're going to take money off the people who are wealthy, who are entrepreneurial, who are going to create growth, and we're going to give it to everybody else, right? But my best description of every Western government as we speak at the minute is the guy, let's assume it's you or me or any person, doesn't have to be a man, obviously, but they've got £100,000 worth of credit card debt, right? And they can only pay the minimum payment every month. Yeah. That is the situation that the government is currently in. So their wages are coming in, they got enough just to pay the minimum payment and potentially their bills, but actually they haven't got enough to pay their bills, so they have to keep increasing their credit card. And that is the situation that the US finds itself in, the UK finds itself in, France finds itself in, Italy, Portugal, Germany, Keep naming the countries, and that's what you got. Except for the Scandinavian countries who've stored money up.
Sovereign wealth fund and all the oil.
I'm not sure about Sweden, but Norway's definitely good for it. Finland's good for it, I think. Sweden, I'm not sure about. All the countries are in that situation. Now, the countries that aren't in that situation, which are mainly 50% of the world's population, probably China, India, Russia. They're not in a good financial state, but they're not in the same state as the West is because they've got resources.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that's a good summary of it. But I mean, if that was you or I in that position who'd run up that amount of borrowing and spending on the credit card, and we were paying the minimum payment, like people would look at you and think you're an absolute idiot. You know what I mean? Like you've only got yourself to blame. You've gone and splurged. You've overspent. And it's accrued this amount, and all you'll be paying that off for the rest of your life. In fact, you'd probably never pay it off if you paid the minimum payment, would you, Kev? In reality terms,
but this is the way the governments are working at the minute. We have to be realistic.
Yeah,
the governments are working on the basis that they will never pay this money off ever, and you cannot pay it off if effectively what you're doing is taxing people to the point where growth doesn't occur. Like growth is almost pointless. I mean, if you're going to start a business today in the United Kingdom, are you going to start it in the UK? No, you're not. You're going to go to Dubai, or you're going to register yourself in. Everybody's been telling me about Italy, the tax regimes that Italy is trying to produce now, because their birth rate is like through the floor and they've got a big problem. So you've got Italy wanting things, you've got Cyprus is a big attraction, Portugal was an attraction and then they stopped it and then they brought it back again, I think. So there's many places people will just go, because 90% of our businesses in the UK now don't need to physically be in the UK.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And let's just talk about one thing that happened pre-budget, which was really interesting, was when they leaked, the OBR leaked the document. So everybody knew what was coming. I mean, to be fair, most people knew anyway, because the way the governments work these days is they drip feed it out beforehand so that people are primed and ready to kind of accept it. It's almost like a tester of, let's see if we can get away with this. Is there going to be an uproar in the media? But yeah, about 30 minutes before, sure enough, documents appeared online, and you could literally read the whole. So people were running them through ChatGPT, giving the bullet points. I don't know if you saw the video of Rachel Reeves being shown the fact that it had been leaked in the House of Commons there, Kev, but it was really, really interesting seeing her reaction. But let's have a look at some of the key ones. I mean, the big ones are the freeze on personal income tax and national insurance thresholds has been extended for 3 more years, meaning obviously many people will move into higher tax bands. So really, this is what they call fiscal drag. This is a stealth tax, isn't it? That a lot of people really aren't aware of.
It's basically not increasing taxes for the headlines, but increasing taxes. But, so it's almost like the political way of increasing taxes without actually doing it. Yeah.
Like, tell
But
me
it
you're not
gives,
increasing taxes when you're increasing taxes.
yeah, because what it actually does, if you think about it, from 2020, when were the freeze first put on? 2021, I think it was, or
Yeah.
2022. So it's going to be 8 or 9 years. Now, if you accumulate 3% increase in wages over 8 or 9 years, what do you get? You get probably 35, 40%.
Yeah.
So effectively, 35 or 40% more tax is going to be paid because of the fact that we've not increased that 12,500.
Yeah,
which is
so
bizarre.
that one is a real stealth tax there. The controversial 2-child cap on welfare limiting benefits for more than 2 children is going to be abolished, and all children in a family can now be eligible for benefits. What does this do, Kev? I mean, let's face it, the average family in the UK has around, I think it's like 1.8, or let's call it 2 children. Who's this? Which demographic is this going to benefit from that by removing this 2-child cap?
Probably most of the people who have come to the UK from somewhere else, because they're all having a huge number of kids.
Yeah.
And in some situations, they've also got a certain number of wives because that's what they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
So that's who's going to benefit for sure.
Yeah. Mansion tax, extra council tax surcharge will apply from 2028 to properties values at over 2 million.
The mansion tax, they should have. I mean, they're tickling at that one, aren't they? I mean, 2.5 grand on a mansion tax is bizarre, but it is saying we're going to put 2 fingers up at anybody who's got plenty of money. But the reality of it is a fixed amount. Why didn't you say, we value the place and it's 0.5%? That's what wealth taxes are around the world in most cases. It's a percentage of whatever the value of it is. But she then did pre-propose that you can effectively create a debt with the government, didn't you? So if you're living in a £3 million house in wherever in London, and you're living off the state pension and not much more, which some people are, then you can't afford to pay this, but you can basically continue to put this as a debt until you sell the property.
I mean, talk about asset rich, cash poor. You're living in a £2 million house in London, which, to be fair, is not. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary if you're in the right area and you inherited that. It was an inheritance property, but you can't afford 3 grand a year to just pay this extra sort of surcharge. It's madness. Absolute madness.
Somebody posted something that it was a 3-bedroom terrace type house in parts of London.
Oh, correct.
And in other parts of London, in Mayfair, it'll be an apartment, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe you've been there for 40 years, and when you bought it, it was £20,000, and now it's,
or as I say, you inherited it from your parents or your grandparents. But anyway, so the other one is tax on dividend income, savings, and property related income is going to increase by 2 percentage points, closing a gap relative to earned income. So that's quite a big one, isn't it? 2% on income savings, and then property related income as well, obviously staged for the lower earners or the lower taxpayers up to the higher rate of, I think it goes up to effective like 40% now, or 43% tax benefit.
So that applies to dividends from entrepreneurs coming out of limited companies and stuff as well. So again, another dagger in the heart of why would you set up a company in the United Kingdom?
She even said, didn't she? So why should the higher earners benefit from these and lower rates? killing growth, killing entrepreneurship in this country. The tax benefit for pension contributions via salary sacrifice is going to be capped from 2029. Only the first £2,000 will be exempt. Any excess will face national insurance NI contributions. So interesting one on that one. Again, punishing people from using this salary sacrifice, which many people do for their pensions and payments.
Yeah, if you're running a big business or a company that's done well and has one particular year that does well, then you can sacrifice a big part of your pension or a big part of your salary and stick it in your pension and save yourself a lot of money. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, you would want to do it. And ultimately, it's just, I'm going to make sure that it is as difficult as possible for you to do well. And as we said, the overall take is that this is the highest take in history in the United Kingdom for taxation. And it isn't going to go down from here, let's be honest. I mean, because if I go back to my analogy, we still have £100,000 in credit card debt, and we can only pay the minimum payment.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that I'm interested in the new increased levies on this EVED. So it's a per mile tax on electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles from 2028. Higher gambling taxes and reductions in cash ISA allowances. So let's just talk about the EVED, the electric vehicle excise duty. So under the rules now, obviously there's
it sounds like you got VD, which is not a good thing when I was when I was growing up.
EVED. So I mean, this is going to be so hard to administrate. I mean, listen to this. So electric vehicles are going to be paying this 3 pence per mile from 2028. Now, at the moment, obviously, electric vehicles are generally exempt from the vehicle excise duty. There was obviously some brought in, I think, a much lower rate for things that were fully EV anyway. So that originally when they came out, it was that. But this reminds me very much of the diesel scandal, the diesel levies. Do you remember when back in the day when diesel was always cheaper than petrol? And then once everybody started buying diesel cars because they were more frugal and economical and probably double the economy of a normal petrol engine, the government started taxing like diesel went up to like probably 30% to 25 to 30% more expensive than normal petrol. So that was like everybody then moved out of the diesel cars and went back to petrol cars. And then everybody obviously then went to electric because it was much cheaper. But now I think this is going to do is going to prevent, or people are going to think twice about what's the benefit of me now buying an electric vehicle when I've got this extra, if you do 10,000 miles a year, it's an extra £300 a year in tax that you wouldn't normally have had to pay. But the hardest bit, Kev, is administering it. Who's going to report? So you buy a new car and you don't have to MOT that vehicle until it's the anniversary of third year of when it was registered. So how are you going to report? The mileage is recorded at the MOT every year, so they could administer it that way. But what are they going to do? Like, they're talking about people having to estimate the amount of mileage they're going to do in the before they do their tax returns or whatever, however they report it, and then do an estimation. I mean, how much is that going to cost?
They're gonna have a little microchip under your skin, or they're gonna be putting a microchip on the bottom of the car, so it will go straight to HMRC. So don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah.
But what actually she did say, because she was asked this question, MOT for 3 years, and therefore how the hell are you going to know how many miles anybody's done? And her answer was, I don't know.
Yeah, she has no idea.
So
exactly.
she has no idea. And part of quite a lot of these stealth taxes and different things that they were talking about quite possibly could cost more money to implement than they actually get from the taxation.
Correct.
So what I saw from the budget was this was the Tinkerbell budget. It was like, let's tinker. And she's tinkered to try and get 26 billion quid, I should say. And that's what she's trying to do.
So I guess the next question I've got for you is, how many of these are actually going to come to fruition? Because a lot of them are going to be from 2028, 2029. And will we have a Labour government in power when some of these come into force?
Well, I don't think. I think if the country comes to its senses, then no, we won't. I keep bringing it back to this guy who's got £100,000 of credit card debt, right? And he's just about surviving. What do you have to do to get out of that situation or make that situation better for yourself? What do you have to do?
Well, you have to obviously reduce your spend, reduce your outgoings. So don't live beyond your means. and also get a large cash injection somehow so that you can pay off in larger chunks and not service the minimum debt.
Even the second part is not the first part. You've got to do the first part first.
Correct.
You've got to reduce your costs.
Correct.
What did she do in the budget?
She increased them by doing things like the 2-child cap, which is going to cost £3 billion extra.
She increased them, right?
Yeah.
And she was of the mind that she said, oh, and not only that, we're going to bring in a fraud department that's going to save us £10 billion by getting more tax from people.
Yeah.
Not let's reduce what we spend.
Yeah.
No. Let's take more money so that we can sort that problem out. To be honest, it doesn't matter who we have in power. We have to have somebody who comes in and slashes expenses.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
You can't, I mean, and I'm not talking about this from a socialist point of view, from a conservative point of view, from any other point of view than if you met somebody who had £100,000 worth of debt, they were about to go under. What advice would you be giving them? It would be
you can't spend your way out of debt, can you? Simple as that.
Yeah. Stop doing this, stop doing that, stop doing that, stop spending that, and save that all of those things so that the tax not can necessarily be reduced because we're at where we're at, but it's not going to get any worse because the next few budgets are just going to continue to take more tax.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the one, Kev, that we should just talk about finally is the cash ISA allowances. Obviously reduced from, well, the cash ISA element only reduced from 20,000 to 12,000 with the premise that you can invest 8,000, so you get your full 20,000 allowance, but 8,000 that has to be in a stocks and shares ISA effectively or invested. So again, that's a little bit of a grey area. We don't know. We need more details on, can you hold it in that account? Obviously, you can hold it as cash within that stocks and shares ISA, but how they'll implement and manage who's spending what and which portion is going where, again, a headache.
Again, Tinkerbell. Let's be honest. We should have had a British ISA, and we should have had it a decade ago, right? That if you want to have the UK government basically allow you to invest and not pay tax, either a portion or all of it should be going into UK shares.
But it's okay for savers aged over 65 or 65 and over because they get the full 20,000 cash allowance. Again.
That was just a bizarre situation that way, because most of those people are not going to be Labour voters, so I didn't understand that one. I just didn't get. That was bizarre.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe the father of the guy who decided to tell her what to do has got a lot of cash ISAs and wants to save.
He's like, you can't do that, Ray. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I don't think there's anything else to say, really. I mean, the markets was interesting, though, wasn't it? As in that, I think that the lack of a gilt market sell-off was quite reassuring initially, and overall the contents of the budget struck a broadly positive tone with investors once they'd had time to digest those key facts initially. And as I say, the market seemed to have held up. I think we looked at the gilt yields. There was a slight increase, but nothing crazy like during the time of the mini budget from Liz Truss.
Yeah, the market's actually, I think, sigh of relief after what she basically did over the previous month, which was basically scare everybody senseless that they were going to do this, that, the other. And then she did virtually none of what she said she was going to do. But all it means is that those things are probably coming down the track if we go further down the line. Listen, the main thing was that as I think you just said, that the bond markets didn't react badly, so that was a good thing. So the borrowing sort of went down a little bit and has come back up a little bit, but it's really unchanged. I can see that we're going to go down the line of having slightly lower interest rates over the next year or so, and we'll see where we go. But we're in the same boat as the US, Italy, most of Europe. We're in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, and if we don't take a big bucket and start chucking the water out the boat, they're all sinking.
Okay. On that note, let's move on to our first guest this week. We're joined by Rory Maxwell, CEO of Priority Intelligence. Welcome back to the podcast, Rory. How's life?
Yeah, sure. Certainly. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, the company has announced 2 new contract wins, with Metric securing a deal to provide AI-driven, data-led growth marketing services to sustainable jewellery brand Untamed, marking the company's first move into the premium jewellery sector. and Half Space landing a contract with World Aquatics in Switzerland, which will deploy fan sonar and compass ID to boost data utilization and commercial returns. Rory, you said the wins highlight PR1's expanding international reach and the versatility of its SaaS tools across luxury, retail, and global sports governance. Sounds exciting, Rory. Just tell us more, please.
We're very excited by both contracts, Untamed and World Aquatics, taking us into new spaces as a business, both into sectors and internationally. Effectively, both of those organizations have taken on Half Space and Metric respectively because of the data-driven solutions to optimize marketing and revenue output that we deploy. That's the primary basis behind why we've kind of won these two contracts. Let me take each one just briefly in turn and explain what I mean by that. So starting with Untamed, if you like, what we're basically deploying for them is an ongoing capability to collect data on all of their different users across different channels. That is through the deployment of two products, Compass ID and Fan Sonar. Compass ID allows us to track users across Untamed's digital touchpoints. That's principally their website. And those users are all consented, regardless of whether they are customers or not. And we are capturing a variety of different digital IDs at the user level, which enable us to do an awful lot of things like track customer journeys, undertake really smart audience analytics by matching those IDs to tell them more about who those audiences are, identify likely to convert high value customer segments, and ultimately use all of those IDs for retargeting in their marketing activities. So that's our proprietary technology that sits behind their website and allows us to capture those IDs and match those IDs. In addition, Untamed are taking Fan Sonar, which is principally focused on social media platforms and provides automated community management and analytics on engagement across social media. Really important for lifestyle and premium brands to be able to provide the kind of content that builds their brand profile and their brand equity and their engagement with their audiences as broadly as possible. And through Fan Sonar, we can track a lot of their social media activity, all of their social media activity, provide engagement analytics, and automate those analytics back to them using the natural language querying interface of Fan Sonar. So you've got the deployment of two SaaS-related products there on a long-term basis for Untamed. And that data that is collected from those two products that I talked about feeds into then broader services that we are providing in areas such as brand strategy, how they grow their brand, and the perception of their brand amongst those audiences. As I've already mentioned, we can feed the IDs into targeting of customers through media planning and buying. And finally, it will help us inform as well the types of sort of influencer partnerships they look to establish in the space. So you've got that data that we're collecting across Compass and Fan Sonar to inform broader digital marketing strategies and digital marketing activities. And that will help Untamed as a business grow in obviously a highly competitive sector. Now, with World Aquatics, it's principally pretty similar to that as well in the deployment of both Compass ID and Fan Sonar also for World Aquatics. The slight difference being is that the audience analytics we are driving from the two products there are feeding into the content distribution that is undertaken by World Aquatics to help identify for them new brand partners, new sponsors on their digital content who will be paying to reach those audiences, and therefore that is direct kind of revenue driving activity for World Aquatics. So slightly different in terms of the ultimate output from a World Aquatics perspective to Untamed, but broadly both organizations are taking those two products.
So obviously priority one now is moving forward. It's enhancing its business opportunities in all of these areas. Just give us an idea. I mean, when do you envisage that the business will become sort of cash flow neutral in terms of the business that you've managed to secure in terms of all the contracts that you have so far?
Ongoing basis. I can't put an exact timeline on that in this call, Kevin. I think where we are is we've announced two really positive contract wins here. There is further contracted revenue already in place as we move into FY26. We're into our midway through our first quarter, and a really healthy pipeline that we continue to build upon. So, the business also continues, as everybody knows, to invest heavily into product development and an expansion of our product capabilities. And we continue to look to drive the growth as aggressively as we possibly can. I can't put a defined timeline on that question, but obviously we're just simply focused on ensuring that we can deploy our products with a real focus on the SaaS-based positioning to drive as good a margin as possible into the business, but supported by that services operation that I've outlined with Untamed and World Aquatics, which gives us stickiness to those products and also gives us an ability to drive a pipeline against the SaaS products that we're deploying as well.
So I presume because of the raises that happened earlier in the year that you have quite a long cash runway anyway. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Okay. So I wanna scoot back to the Untamed. How do you see this will allow you to get more customers in this particular area? Because I presume their jewelry is fairly high range or high end stuff. So how and when are you going to be able to use that to get to Chanel, etc., etc.?
This is a good news very fundamentally. If these products that we're deploying can provide the kind of data that really helps optimize the marketing spend that Untamed are deploying in order to grow aggressively their customer acquisition, then we have a really good proof of concept across the retail sector to deploy in other areas, not simply just luxury jewelry and premium retail, but in other sectors as well. Ultimately, that is what this boils down to, looking at what are the most optimal ways to drive customer acquisition. And we have a suite of data tools, and they are deploying Compass and Fan Sonar and potentially others in the future that we believe can really help support the ability of them to understand their audiences better so that they can target those audiences better. And all of that activity is ensuring that they are capturing more data. They have the capabilities internally to capture more data that they own directly as an organization, which will improve their business intelligence, their analytics, and as I said, ultimately their ability to win customers in the future. And that, as a fundamental standpoint, would stand us in very strong stead for multiple other sectors.
Very good. Now, the World Aquatics thing, I looked at that announcement and thought to myself, surely there's got to be the opportunity that deal is 10, 15 times bigger just by going out to the countries that have the same situation as the main body. Is that something that you've discussed with them, that's a possibility? Obviously the US, the UK, Germany, Australia, wherever.
And that's why the successful the successful completion of this agreement and the winning of this business in Switzerland is important, because not only World Aquatics but other Olympic and non-Olympic federations that are all based in Switzerland, and it generally is the home of really international sports organizations that have a remit to govern their sports on a global basis. That's why this contract is an important win for us, and why working with World Aquatics really closely and others is going to be such an important part of how we see growth for the business. Because you're absolutely right, it gives us an extensive capability to really put our data capabilities front and center with a global sport. And ultimately the growth of that sport requires the national organizations to do their job alongside the international organization as well. So it gives us an enormous opportunity to scale across different sports and different organizations. That is absolutely for sure, and we will be continuing to work hard and in growing our presence in that specific market.
You have other world organizations or country organizations, as well as World Aquatics, that you haven't been able to name before? Is that something that you've already done or not? Or is this
we have historically historically we have worked with other international sports organizations, governing bodies, and so we've got a very good level of experience across the team in understanding, importantly, that ecosystem, how those stakeholders operate and support one another. I think that's really important to outline, particularly in areas like golf and tennis, where we have worked quite extensively with international organizations that have a broad remit across multiple different markets to govern the sport. So yeah, we do have a good understanding of effectively how that commercial model flows from international down to national level, and then ultimately growth in participation. And it's important to be aware of that. So equally, I might add, look at the domestic football clubs as well that we work with, at the Premier League level. They also have international audiences as well. They might only be based here in the UK, but they also have an international footprint as well to a lot of their activity. So international sport as a market is not foreign to us by any stretch of the imagination. We've all got an extensive amount of experience in it. Half Space, obviously, during its 7 years of existence, was focused on the sports sector. My background has been over 25 years across that sector on an international basis, and the rest of the team as well have extensive experience. So we do see the international sports market as a really good opportunity for growth, no doubt.
Very good. Well, just to give everybody an idea, you currently have a market cap of 2.9 million. I think you have probably circa maybe the 900,000 of that in Bitcoin and cash, probably, in terms of what you raised previously. So you've got a valuation probably of around £2 million, which seems not very much for what you're trying to build. So yeah, let's see where this all goes, and we look forward to speaking to you over the coming weeks and months as I'm sure you're going to announce more and more contract wins.
We certainly plan to. That's our hope indeed, Kevin. So definitely look forward to speaking to you again. Plenty more.
Thank you for coming, Rory. So let's welcome our second guest. We have Paul from, I'll leave it to you.
Paul from Buccaneer Energy. Good to be with you, Kevin.
And
thanks for having me on. So anyway, a lot of interesting things happened since the last time we had a discussion.
Yeah, lots of interesting things, including a very, very disappointing duster, as people said it to me. Yeah, so let's deal with that as an issue. You obviously spent a certain amount of money on that. Tell us, what the actual physical loss was to the company, and how's that's going to be rectified. I mean, I think the news that we got this week is part of that process of salvaging this situation and actually maybe making it even better from what we've had a discussion about.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're correct. So anyway, so let's just talk about what we have. So we drilled the Allard number 1, which was originally the Falc 3 well. That was a well that was north of our two existing producers, Falc 1 and Falc 2. And we snugged it up against the bounding fault. So this fault is where that traps the oil. This was the well that was the closest to the fault, so it left the least amount of oil behind. And so we scooched it right up next to the fault for two reasons. One is it left less adequate oil behind, and two, we had picked up a leasehold, and we could only put it in a certain narrow window because we had offsets to the leases to our south and to our west. And so when we drilled the well, we were the closest to the fault as we could get, basically. And we got to TD and we found out that we, instead of having 25 feet of pay, we had 2. And what happened as we got to that fault, the sands thinned out and they shelled out. So we didn't have enough, we felt, to complete the well in that location. So ideally, in a perfect world, what we would have done is we would have set a plug, sidetracked the well about 150 feet to the west, and picked up that sand that we know exists because we can see it on seismic. So that's what we did. The reason we couldn't see what happened close to the fault is that a thing called the fault shadow. And so it kind of masked what the sand did beneath the fault. But anyway, the fault's in the right spot. The sand's there. Now we need to move to the west to make a well. The reason we didn't do it at the time we were drilling the well is that in Texas, you have a number of rules and regulations that you have to comply with. And one is you have to be so far off a lease line to have what they call a permit location. So we had to be 330 feet off the west lease line, and that's exactly where we spud the well. So for us to move further or closer to that lease, within that 330-foot window, we needed the permission of the offset leaseholder, and we didn't have it. And so we could get it, but it would take us time to negotiate that. And we had a rig on location that was costing us, 30 to 35,000 bucks a day. So we couldn't negotiate that as we had the rig sit there idly waiting. So we plugged the well, let the rig go, and then we set out to negotiate to pick up that lease. And so that's what we've announced today, that we picked up the lease to the west. So now we can give ourselves permission, to essentially sidetrack this well into the desired location. And so that's one option. So I think the purpose of picking up this acreage gives us optionality or flexibility. So we have that ability at the moment. In addition to that,
so just to confirm that, what you're saying is that you won't have to drill this hole again, and the duster will not be a duster anymore, because you will go to the west.
Sidetrack it. So we have to drill about 600 feet. So the original well was 5,700 feet, 5,700 feet. We have to sidetrack it about 150 feet to the west, drill 600 feet of new hole, and that'll cost us about $150,000 gross, right? That gross number, we're a third of that, so our cost is $50,000. What I didn't say up front is that my dry hole cost in this well is $182,000. That's my net cost. So I spent $182,000. It didn't come in like we expected, and the share price, was cut by, 3/4, which was, in my mind, overzealous response to what actually happened here. However, it did. So this is where we are at the moment. So we picked up this acreage. On that acreage, we have 2 wells, the Daniel 1 and the Turner number 1. The Turner number 1 well is 580 feet from our Falk location. It's a producing well. The well can be returned to production, which is what we intend to do. The reason the well isn't producing today is that it's in an area that has a slightly heavier crude than we do. It drilled into a thing called a tar mat. So their crude is about 17, 18 API, whereas ours in Falk area is 21, 22. And to sell the oil, at the time they were trying to sell it at one point, it was a little bit cool. So the oil got a little viscous. And so to sell it, they had to heat up the oil. So they have a thing in the tanks called the heater treater. The field hand left the heater treater running all night. The tanks overheated and they exploded. Okay, I'm in the U.S. and they exploded like it was the 4th of July. It was a huge explosion. They burned everything to the ground. Right, it's all been cleaned up. Right, so the pumping unit's there, the well's there. What's not there are any kind of storage tanks. We have storage tanks, less than 500 feet away. And so what we think we're going to do is essentially pipe that well into our existing storage tanks and start producing it. Now, it's been shut for a while. It's a little bit down dip. It's an ideal location for an injector in the future. But at the moment, we still think it has potential. And again, that potential is not huge, between 10 and 30 barrels a day, but it's better than just sitting there idle. So we expect to return that well to production at some future point, in the near term. And then the other well to the north, the Daniel well, is another ideal location for an injector when we start a water flood. So picking up these 2 wells allows us to essentially form a unit. And then within that unit, we'll use these 2 down dip injectors to start putting water in the ground to repressurize this area. Because one of the things I mentioned, I think on our previous discussion, is that this area has seen pressure depletion. So these wells that came in originally at 140 barrels a day have now declined. And so they're making between 30 and 70 barrels a day. And the reason for that is pressure has dropped. So when we start putting water back into the ground, we repressure the reservoir, and then the productivity increases. And so that's what we intend to do. Now, to pull that together, we have to work with the leaseholders, form a unit, speak to the regulator, which is Railroad Commission. It's a well understood process. It'll take a couple of months to pull together. So we think by some point in the first quarter, we can have a unit, and we can start injecting water and increasing our production here. Now, the nice thing about that is injecting water into an existing well doesn't cost very much. And the recoverable volume change you see is a 2x uplift over where we are at the moment. So originally, the way this field is developed in the Falk area, we were going to get about between 15 and 20% of the original oil in place. Having it under water flood will allow us to produce between 40 and 50%. So essentially, it's a doubling. Now, the doubling comes with a little increase in cost because we produce, water and oil, and we have to treat that. But at the moment, we're only producing oil. The pressure's declined, the rates have declined. So we need to start putting what we call energy back in the reservoir. And by picking up this acreage, we control that entire process. So we can pick the locations for the injectors, the producers, put the energy back in the reservoir where it needs to be. And so it's a very, very cost-effective way to essentially double production. And so that's our intent with this, is to really move that process forward aggressively.
So how many barrels of oil will you be or will be indicated then to Buccaneer if all of this happens? So in other words, if you manage to side drill the dust, re-drill the other one that's supposed to be coming in December, and then these two wells that you've got, by injecting them with water, the overall situation will improve from what to what?
Okay, so some of these things are mutually exclusive. So let me give you two scenarios. So we go the the direction we're traveling at the moment. We return the Turner well to production. That adds between 10 and 30 barrels a day gross. Again, we're a third of all this. We drill the Aller number 1 sidetrack. That adds another 120 barrels a day, right? 124 is the max we can get, so that'll be 40 net to us. We drill the Falc 4 location. Again, that's another 120 barrels a day gross, 40 to us. So the total increase we could see on a gross basis is about between 250 and 270 barrels a day. Okay, that's what we could see on the upside from our primary development. The flip side is if we say, okay, we're going to hold off and just start the water flood. We're making about 100 barrels a day now. We start injecting water into one or two of these wells. We can essentially take the 100 barrels a day and make that 200 to 220 barrels a day gross over the course of 3 to 4 months. And that's at a very low price point. How low, I don't know, but quite low. So those are the kind of range of outcomes we can see. The capital difference between those is pretty enormous because we don't have to drill any new wells in the water flood case. We just have to essentially put some piping in and run the water injection down there. So these are the type of discussions that we're having. Now, the other thing too is if we think we can sequence it in a way that if we start injecting water early, we pressure up the reservoir, then when we drill those wells, which will be LR1 and Falc 4, they will come in at higher rates for a longer period of time. So these are the type of things that we're looking at on a technical basis now that we have this acreage. And so that's kind of the range of outcomes. We'll look at the most commercially attractive one. If the oil price was $120 today, I would say drilling those wells, boom, 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 would be the thing to do. Now that the oil price is in the, let's call it $55 to $60 range, capital efficiency comes in to play, and we have to look at, what's the best for all parties. And it's not just us. We're a third. Our other partners, 2/3. They're going to have a say in this as well. So those are the outcomes. But because we have this acreage, we know we're going to essentially double the reserves that we produce in this area by starting this water flood. So it's really a key step in the process.
How much longer do you think these fields will produce by the fact that you're able to pump water into them?
Okay, so put it in perspective, Pine Mills was discovered in 1949. It's still producing today. So that's a good 75 years. We've got at least 20 years of commercial production ahead of us in the Falc area, in my estimation. And that's just not me talking. We get reserves done all the time. So it's at least 20 years ahead of us.
20 plus years. And is that with or without water?
That's with water. That's with the flood. If we don't put the water in the ground, I think we'll probably have another 10 years of declining production. By putting water in the ground and increasing the pressure and increasing the rate, we get a good solid 20 years. And again, the tail end of that is going to depend on the oil price. If the oil price spikes up, if we're in the $150 range, then that will continue on. If the oil price drops to $20 a barrel, then it would terminate. So it's determined the price at as we get to the marginal barrel is going to determine the length of time. But easily, given our current operating costs, which in this area are $5 a barrel, we can run for a long time.
Okay, very good. So 20 years production. At how many in total barrels of oil a day would you have, even as it stands, on the basis that you don't drill another hole? How many barrels of oil are accountable to you?
Yeah, so I think we've got about 300,000 barrels that are original in place are sitting there. Without the water flood, we would produce about, we produce probably 100,000 of that. With the water flood, we produce closer to 150 to 200,000, something like that. So we'll see. So we would double. The other thing, the other option we have here is there's a thing called getting a little ahead of ourselves, but there's a way we can treat the injected fluid through putting some microbes down the wellbore, and that will change the interfacial tension of the crude and the oil at the rock face, and that will allow us to increase that 50% recovery to something higher than that. So that's also something that we're investigating at the moment. In very mature water floods, you have the ability to change the chemistry in the reservoir by putting microbes down that, and that's something that we're actively pursuing at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like you basically try to create a big, excuse my language, but a big fart underground that basically puts pressure on it that then allows it to come up. Is that fair to say?
Well, in a ton, in polite company, I'm not sure I would use that analogy, but I would say we're creating an energy source that allows us to produce well at a higher rate. Yes,
okay. Correct. Well, looking at this, if you get 200 barrels of oil and you have a margin of $10 on each barrel, which is
our margin. Wait. Our margin is $50.
I agree with you. The margin is more like $40 to $45.
Okay.
But I'm just giving a calculation. That puts you at a valuation of £2 million. Okay. Your current market cap is less than £1 million or £1 million. Okay. And crazy. These are not the only assets that you've got. Okay.
No.
So the question is, if that is 200,000, I was actually more interested when I asked that question. I was more interested in, if you only inject the water, how many accountable barrels are available for you if you don't drill anything else? How many daily barrels?
So we would take, so in the Falcon area, we're producing around 100 barrels a day at the moment. We would double that. So it would go up to 200, right? That's what we would do.
So you would suddenly become 60 barrels of oil a day.
Correct. Out of that, just out of that area.
Yeah. And you're on a margin, let's be conservative, of 40. So it's 60 times 40 times 30. You're only good at maths. That's a net to you of $72,000 a month.
Yeah, that's about right.
Which is
that's assuming no change in the oil price or anything like that. Everything's constant, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So $860,000 per annum as we stand. So if we don't have any more capex, that would be the case. Now, if we do have capex, which you have the money, right? You did have the capex. So if you have the capex, how many barrels would be attributable in total if you drilled the side swipe, the new one?
Right. So we did everything. So everything would be
injected water.
Well, okay. So we would have to do that in stage. So let's just say we'd pick up another 280 barrels of oil from drilling, and then we would add another 200 over the period from water injection. So it would be closer to, and again, these are gross numbers, that would be closer to 500 barrels a day, of which we'd have a third, right? So let's say it's 150 barrels a day. That's what it would be.
Yeah.
I think the sequencing, though, Kevin, to be important here, is that we get that pressure in the reservoir first, and then we drill these wells in the future, because I think two things will happen. One is we'll get an uplift on price at some point. And two, when the reservoir is already pressured up, they flow at a higher rate. So we have a better opportunity to, I don't know if you saw the production profile, but when we originally drilled the wells, they came in at 140 barrels a day flat for almost 18 months, right? With no decline. And so the greater we build up the pressure in the system, the longer we can extend that plateau period. And so that's kind of I think the most important phase when we develop this is that plateau rate. That's when we make the most money. The fastest amount of money is right there at that initial period. So for me, ideally, and again, we're running all the numbers now. We're doing these things technically, as we get the system pressured up, and then we drill these wells. And I think that would be ideally the best time to do it.
Okay, so we're basically talking about $157,000 a month, 1.89 million per annum of free cash flow that you would generate if you did it the other way. So we've basically got a situation where put the water in first. Hopefully that's going to make you increase your monthly kick to 72,860 a year, and then engage the money, drill the other two holes, and then you're going to go up to 150 barrels of oil a day. But the margin's going to decrease, so I've reduced it.
It'll decrease slightly. Again, it'll decrease slightly. It'll probably, we're making, it costs us $5 a barrel now. It'll probably go up to 10. So our margin will drop a little bit, but
Yeah, I've been conservative and reduced your margin to 35. It gives you $157,000 a month and 1.9 million per annum. So that's the aim.
Yeah.
Are we talking that you will be in that situation in what period of time?
We would be that situation in the first half of next year. We have to do all this. I mean, again, form the unit, get the water going, start drilling these wells. I think that ideally that's the timing. Now, it'll depend on what my partner wants to do. Again, I'm a third of this. If my partner is aggressive and they're a well-known explorer, we could be on our current schedule, which currently hasn't changed in that, Falcon 4 is last week in December at the moment. That's the plan, right? That is the unchanged plan where we are at the moment. So it'll be Falcon 4, sidetrack 1. But now that we picked up this acreage, we're having a rethink and we got to talk to the commission. So there's a lot of things we're going to do in December to decide the way forward. But, whatever happens, those barrels aren't going anywhere. It's just the time frame in which we develop them and how we develop them. So we'll capture them, but it's just going to take the time frame is, again, different. It may be different because, again, given the low oil price, it makes more sense to spend a little less CapEx now, get the reservoir pressured up, so when the prices do increase, we can aggressively develop this thing. But again, that's down to me. I'm cashed up either way. I can go either way, but I'm a technical person. Right? I'm a reservoir engineer by background. I see the merit in getting this reservoir back up to original pressure and producing it at an optimal rate. Because two things happen. One is we get the best flow rates out of the wells when we drill them, and then two, we maximize the amount of oil that we're going to produce. And so, to me, that's the best solution.
And these little bugs that you're going to put down that will create gas or create something that will push things up. Does that mean that the reservoir would not be 40 or 50%? It could be 60 or 70% of the reservoir that gets pushed down.
I think if you want to think about it rather than using your physical anomaly there through bodily functions, I would think about it a different way. If you take your windscreen on your car and you wax it up and then you throw water on it, prior to waxing it up, the water kind of forms a film and it's kind of difficult to get off. Once you wax that windscreen, the water beads up and rolls off relatively quickly, right? It's easy to clean your windscreen. That's what's happened in the reservoir. Once you put these bugs down there, the oil is essentially repulsed from the rock, and so it flows a lot easier. And so that's what we're trying to achieve. So we're in the process of working on that at the moment. Again, that's a work in progress, but it's really important to mature water floods because essentially you've pushed a lot of water through it, and so the last bit of oil is just kind of clinging on there. And so this is why these mature water floods respond incredibly well to these kind of organic floods that are starting to happen. And
that's a much better explanation than my big fart explanation. I have to agree with you, Paul. So that's good. Okay.
I'm a technical person.
So from the perspective of the future, okay, because at the end of the day, we are still talking about infancy here, even if you get to 150 barrels a day. When we came on and talked big picture, you were talking 3,000 to 5,000 barrels a day. Yeah. Are we going to be in a time where we have a low oil price and you're going to be able to pick up some bargains to basically get?
We're there. I mean, we're there now. We're there now. This is the time that we need to do this, and we are evaluating this every single day. Like I told you on our first call, we had agreed on 300 barrel a day acquisition, and that was gazumped by their original partner. So yes, we're working on that every day, and this is the time to do it because we don't think these oil prices are going to stay at this level forever. If you look at the forward curve, it looks like through 2026 are probably going to be low, but then after that they start to kick up. So yes, we are actively pursuing that, and that is how we're going to achieve our targets because there are people out there that have a tremendous amount of debt, they can't service it, and they've got to sell barrels. And so we're talking to our partners, we're talking to our banks, we're talking to everybody about the best opportunity. But again, we're focused on we're not jumping the border and going crazy. We're looking in our neighborhood, what's easy for us to assimilate, similar types of production because we think we can operate it well. And so those are the areas we're looking in, and we're looking aggressively. So at some point, I'll look forward to announcing that we're going to make another acquisition, and that will start us on our journey to 3,000 to 5,000 barrels a day, which is where we need to get to.
Yeah, very good. No, I can see it's going to happen. And to be honest with you, from a dollar perspective, I perceive that the dollar is going to continually lose value. So the price of a barrel of oil in dollars is going to have to go up simply because of the buying power of the dollar is not going to be there. So, though your costs should still be maintained fairly well in terms of dollar terms, hopefully then we're going to have an uptick in the price of oil over the short to medium term, if you like, and over the next 1 to 3 years. And at $100 a barrel, which might not be so crazy when we see the dollar depreciate, then you're going to be printing money basically. So,
yeah, I mean, again, we're still profitable at current prices. I mean, we're still making money. It's just we want to make a lot more money, but our operating costs are low. We're surviving. We're in a low cost area. We already did the heavy lifting on getting our costs in line. So now it's the opportunity to take advantage of where we are in this price cycle and go aggressively after new opportunities, and that's what we're doing.
Good. Great to speak to you again, Paul. You've been on the roast before, and we did ask you what your roast dinner was. So I can only ask you.
My roast dinner is going to change. I think what I told you.
I can only ask you now what your Thanksgiving dinner would be.
Our Thanksgiving dinner is going to be this is a little bit nutso, but we're having a thing called a turducken, which I think some people in the UK will know what a turducken is, but it's a turkey stuffed with a chicken, stuffed with a duck, and then between each layer we have crawfish étouffée. So it's not for the diet conscious, but it is for the people who enjoy a good meal. And so we are having a Thanksgiving turducken today.
I thought you were going to explain to me that the chicken somehow got involved with the turkey and it became
no. It's much more mechanical than intimate, I would say. So it's quite a good thing. So that's what we're having today. It is Thanksgiving today, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone that's listening. But so that's our Thanksgiving dinner this afternoon.
Yeah, this was recorded on Thursday, but you're not listening till Sunday. But yeah, that's good. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who celebrated Thanksgiving. I had to give a lesson today about Thanksgiving. Do you know what year was the first year that Thanksgiving took place?
I want to say 1784, 1782, something like that.
1621, when they first came. They first came on the Mayflower. 1621.
Yeah, 1621 was that one. Oh, I was off by 100 years. Okay.
And do you know what year it was made an official holiday and why?
No, that I don't.
Okay, Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War in 1863 made it official national holiday. And since then, for a long time, people didn't celebrate Thanksgiving that much in the US until the last 50, 60, 70 years. And now it's obviously a national holiday and everybody celebrates it. So there you go.
Yeah, it's one of the great American holidays because you don't think anybody gifts.
Well, I'm going to argue with you. I'm going to argue with you there, Paul, because actually it's a great English holiday because without the English going there, you wouldn't have had it.
True. This is true.
This is an English holiday that you Americans celebrate. The fact that we came and took over the United States of America.
Let's just say we perfected it then. How about that?
Very good. Anyway, Anyway, good to chat, and we look forward to speaking to you in the not too distant future when you have your plans set in stone of what we're going to do. But very, very cheap market cap at the minute in terms of what you're doing. As you said, you're profitable. You've got the cash to do these things, and that's going to generate more money. So yeah, it looks like an easy play to me.
All righty. Again, thanks very much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Okay, let's have a look at some of the movers and shakers of the week. The best mover of the week, according to SharePad, was VLRM Holdings, up 140%. I don't know if you saw the news, but it's quite interesting, Kev. They signed a head of terms to secure a massive $200 million royalty and streaming financing package from Valerian QGPSP, a new Cayman segregated portfolio vehicle with the option for QGPSP to acquire up to 49.9% of the company within a year. The funding, delivered via asset-backed investment-grade insured QMTN perpetual notes, will strengthen Valerium's balance sheet, accelerate development of its AI-driven tokenization, crypto banking, and digital asset treasury platforms, support the acquisitions, and underpin its planned listing on its US NASDAQ. The structure includes a 5.25% coupon, further potential equity issuance, and governance changes, giving QGP 2 board seats and completion. Both sides describe the deal as transformational, positioning Valerium for international expansion and major growth in AI-enabled royalty and streaming finance, with closing expected within 4 weeks, pending final due diligence and regulatory approval. So quite a big deal, that one, by the looks of things, Kev.
I think this whole tokenization thing people have sort of missed. I think this tokenization of borrowing money to then go into either royalties, in this case, exploration, which was first class metals. I've got a deal with Valerium as well in terms of the tokenization of that as well. So yeah, if this takes off, this could be, billions of dollars being raised in a tokenized way that will allow a lot of these projects to get real things out the ground, like silver and gold and copper.
Well, they've actually planning the NASDAQ listing. If you read the RNS, it's all about the NASDAQ. So they're really pushing hard to get onto NASDAQ.
So what is the price now of Valerium at the end of the week?
Yeah, so Valerium's trading at 14.75 pence and giving it a market cap of circa £30 million.
Very good. So that's like 3 times what it was when the old crypto craziness was going on. So now it looks like it has a real business, and that still seems cheap to me in terms of what they're actually trying to do. So that could be quite amazing.
Yeah. Next one is DEBS, DEBS, Debenhams Group, or Boohoo. Did you see this one?
No.
So this was up 100% on Friday, effectively, or 100% on the week. It had a really, really good run. They introduced a new group turnaround scheme to replace legacy incentive plans that excluded its CEO and CFO, giving key executives a focused, high-powered reward structure tied directly to the company's multi-year recovery. After stabilising the business, delivering £41.6 million adjusted EBITDA, raising £39 million of equity, selling the non-core assets and securing a new £175 million facility, the board believes an immediate incentive overhaul is essential to keep the turnaround on track. Following consultation with major shareholders representing 36% of voting rights, the committee approved the plan without a general meeting, arguing that shareholder approval is not legally required. Delays would damage momentum, and a disruptive competitor shareholder has recently voted against routine resolutions. The new scheme grants participants a share of value created if the share price rises from 35 pence to £3 over the next 5 years, measured at 3 checkpoints, with full vesting equating to a maximum 5% dilution and requiring market cap to climb to around £4.2 billion, which is a 25-fold increase from today's price. So yeah, DEBS, I don't know if you know much, obviously Debenhams Group, Boohoo. Boohoo Group is actually the listed entity, but they were trading around 23 pence. But it's some statement, isn't it? This new scheme granting participants a share of the value if the share price rises from 35 to £3 over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's very good. And I've got another one that's very similar to this, which is WCAP in the UK, and ultimately WeShop that's listed on the NASDAQ. Now, we haven't seen a rise in the share price as yet, but WeShop's exactly the same. You can go on, get in your app, do all your Christmas shopping through WeShop, and subsequently you get shares in WeShop. So effectively, you're participating in the upside of what's happening on the NASDAQ as they listed. They listed about $20 a share. They're now around $140 to $150 a share already, worth about $1.6 billion. But the interesting thing is, if you want to participate in that NASDAQ company, you need to get invested in WeCap, which currently is valued at about £10 million, and the shareholding in WeShop on the NASDAQ is circa 90 to £100 million.
Yeah.
Now they're locked in for 12 months, but I actually think these things are going to start catching on. People are going to get into them. It's exactly what social media wants, because there's all sorts of referral schemes within it and so on and so forth. I saw a couple of the guys on the website yesterday. He made a Christmas purchase from Argos for 90 odd pounds. He got himself £10 of money, which obviously goes straight to WeShop. But then he got I think it was 0.09 of a share in WeShop, listed on the NASDAQ. Now, if WeShop goes to $1,000 a share, then he's going to have not paid for his purchase, down the line. And I just think these sort of situations where people can benefit from their purchases are going to be big things.
Mutual, they call it a mutual.
It is. Well, John Lewis has been this way for a long time with their staff.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to get to that stage now where what you're suggesting with is happening with what Boohoo. I can see it happening not across the board, but the first people who get into these situations, I think, are going to benefit big style.
Yeah, absolutely. And that WCAP's trading at just under 13 million cap, so like 12.9 at 2.6. So yeah, it's got just 90 to 100 million pounds worth of WeShop shares in it. Value, but as you say, locked in for 12 months from the IPO, which is still got another 12 months, then it's still good value, really, assuming it continues to hold around those prices. But I think they've just got to prove the business model, and they prove that it's not just a sort of fad.
Yes, but every day that the share price on the Nasdaq holds itself, I think then you're going to see that's the situation. But the reason why this share price hasn't gone up is because two of the big institutions have basically said, thank you very much, we've made our profit. Peel Hunt and another one, which I don't remember the name. So more than 30% of the company has been sold in the last week to 10 days. So that's the reason why the share price is still only 3p, because there's no way you can have an arbitrage of like literally 1,000%. That doesn't make any sense. So, I think what you're going to see over the next few weeks is that share price is going to drift up to probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10p, especially if the WeShop share price in the UK stays stable or increases, or even slightly decreases, because ultimately the share price of WeCap now should be around 30p if there's no arbitrage. Now let's assume there is arbitrage. So let's say 50% of the arbitrage shouldn't be priced in. Then you're looking at a WeCap at about 12 to 15p would be fair value, and it's 3p. So I think if you want a quick arbitrage, have a look at WeCap, and I think you get buying some is all I'd say to you.
Okay, the other one that's had an outstanding RNS this week was EMH, European Metal Holdings, up some 92%. They notified the market that its Sinovec lithium project will receive a Czech government grant of up to 360 million euros, pending final administrative steps. One of the largest direct funding commitments ever made to an EU critical raw materials project. The support provided under the Strategic Investments for a Climate Neutral Economy programme reinforces Sinovec's status as a core European battery materials asset, following its designation as an EU strategic project, recognition as a Czech strategic deposit, and an earlier European equivalent USD 36 million Just Transition Fund award. The grant, paid as a reimbursement of eligible capex through 2032 at up to 35% aid intensity, highlights strong EU and Czech backing for securing domestic lithium supply, with EMH's chairman calling it a transformational milestone amid improving lithium market sentiment and renewed geopolitical focus on supply chain security. So amazing news there, Kev. I mean, it's a massive endorsement from this just Czech government with a grant of up to 360 million euros. What do you make of it? And obviously, if this had come, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, when lithium was in its, it was the metal to be in, it would have probably 10 bagged on that news.
Yeah, I think it's great news. My only skepticism was that it was up to 360 million, but could be any figure up to that 360 million. So let's see the finer details. Let's see what actually comes out. I'm certainly, it's probably massively undervalued no matter what grant they get in terms of that. Will lithium play a massive role going forward in the future? I think it will, but I don't think it's as people viewed it 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah,
and that brings us on to a much, not an out of fashion metal, into 3 or 4 metals which are massively in fashion right now in terms of popularity, price. Everybody, you go on any social media platform. I'm on X a lot, and I'm seeing silver stackers. We're seeing gold being talked about. There's amazing comparisons, amazing memes. Tell us about silver, Kev. It hit 56.7 at the time of recording. What do we make of silver's performance?
Well, silver is still the metal that, in sort of inflation adjusted terms, is ridiculously cheap, and people don't seem to gather that, whether for industrial purposes or for your jewelry or basically, as you say, just stacking. I mean, basically 12 months ago, I became a stacker, didn't I? I mean, basically, I started buying silver because I thought,
not too late, mate. I was stacking during COVID.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's not it's not a race, but the reality is I didn't have any money during COVID, so that wouldn't have helped me. But yeah, what about silver? If you look at the adjusted price of silver, it's just hit an all-time high. The old all-time high was in 1981, around $54, $55. If you adjust that for inflation, then the real all-time high for silver is 220 US dollars.
Yeah.
So just let that sink in. 220 US dollars would be an inflation adjusted all-time high. We're at $56.70, right? So are we really at an all-time high?
No, nowhere near.
No, we're not even close.
No.
And the other thing to think about is this ratio between gold and silver. Now, you can say that it's pie in the sky, but the reality is for centuries, millennia, this is how people have talked about silver. Interestingly, in India, they have just said that you can borrow against your gold and silver. And do you know what ratio they're going to use? Gold to silver? 1 to 10. Its current ratio is 75, even after this last run. Now, if that drops to 50 to 60, what price are we going to see in silver? We're going to see $100 silver, okay? Because all the banks are saying gold's going to 5,000 or 4,700, 4,900. And again, most of them have been wrong, hugely wrong anyway. And again, why is this happening? Ask yourself, why is this happening? It's because the guy has £100,000 worth of credit card debt and can only pay the basic amount because the US dollar is going to become less and less, or worth less and less in real terms, what it can buy. So what's everybody doing? Especially the governments around the world, the central banks, they're buying gold. And we've just started to see now that they're buying silver. Now, silver isn't a massive market. If these central banks start to buy silver, we are going to probably see $200 and $300 silver.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Again, maybe I'm talking off the top of my head, but I just can't see that we aren't headed down that road. Now, whether that happens tomorrow or a year or 2 years, 3 years, what's going to happen to allow these countries to pay off this debt? Tell me one or two things, Phil, that you think the UK can pay its debt, the US can pay its debt, Europe can pay their debts. How are they going to do it?
Well, I mean, if they'd have had, Gordon Brown used an example, didn't he, many years ago when he thought he could pay off the UK debt by selling all of the gold in its coffers. And he raised something like, was it about 5.6 billion at the time, which if it had kept that gold now would have been worth something like 23 billion or something ridiculous. So that, but they could certainly buy silver and gold and then sit on it and let the appreciation, and then maybe sell some, use the price of gold. I don't know, there's many different ways they can do it.
Yeah, all of which they won't do.
Yeah.
Okay, in the West anyway. In the East, in China, in Russia, in India, even in Egypt to an extent, in Saudi Arabia, all of these are BRICS nations now. I think Indonesia is another one of them. There is 48% of the world's population now in the BRICS group.
Yeah.
And all of them are resource-based countries to the most degree. And effectively, what we're seeing is power moving from the West to the East. The West still has a lot of the money, but if you devalue that money, okay, which they're going to have to do if they want to reduce their debts, whatever way you talked about, it comes down to a devaluation of that. Devaluation of that so that they can deal with that debt. And in essence, you go into the credit card company and saying, can't pay this, mate. You're going to have to negotiate with me. And the credit card company says, okay, we want 25 pence on the pound. So if you can pay off 25 grand, we'll call it quits. That is 75% devaluation, which is what your man Rick Rule's been talking about over a period of time in the US dollar. And that's happening. That's going to happen. So
silver's up 13% on the month. Do you know what it is on the year since at the start of the year?
I think it's around 80%, isn't it now?
75% up on the year. So remarkable. Fresnillo, probably one of the biggest, well, certainly the biggest UK silver stock, is up it's 297% jump in profits as well. That was their latest reporting, which is like $467 million. versus the same period last year. Obviously, that's helped by the high precious metal prices and tighter cost control, and revenues up by 30%. So,
but what's the share
amazing.
price gone up by this year?
So Fresnillo is up 316% on the year, from the 1st of Jan this year. It's incredible performance.
Incredible performance. But think about it this way: if the commodity you're dealing with has gone up 75%, then your profit margin was probably about 50% of the previous one, and it's just gone up basically 75% more. Your profit margin has probably moved from 50% to 200%. So now you're on a 200% profit margin, with the possibility that silver's going to $100, $150. Your profit margins could be in the region of 500, 600, 700% higher than they were last year. So I don't even think it started. We're going to see.
Don't forget they've also got gold assets as well in Mexico. So the Peru, Chile as well, but they are Mexico's largest gold producer. So they're in the right markets.
Yeah, that's going to be in my view, that's probably going to be an easy 10 bagger over the next couple of years.
Yeah,
just from where it is at the minute. And I mean, gold is moving to gold. It's going to be the same situation. Gold has obviously had a good run already this year, but all the banks are predicting 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 5,000 gold by the end of 2026. So if they're saying that, it probably has to go over that price and then come back. So are we going to get another run on gold? If we are, and we go back to the silver ratio, then the silver ratio for it to be 50 at $5,000 gold is what is the price of $100 silver at 5,000 at 50?
$100. What is the price? You mean the ratio?
The ratio is going to be 50 to 1 if we've got $100 and 50. Now, historically, the ratio was always around 30.
Yeah, 25, 30, yeah.
25, 30. So if we have a 30 ratio with a $5,000 gold, you have gold at $160 to $170 an ounce.
Yeah.
If you have $6,000 gold, which I think is actually what's going to happen, because I think all the banks are underpricing what's actually happening, then you have a 30 to 1 ratio between gold and silver. You have $200 silver. Let's see what happens. And I mean, what's Fresno going to be worth, or whatever silver producer you want to talk about? What's it going to be worth at a $200 silver price? What's Guardian Metal going to be worth with 6.6 million ounces of silver at $200 an ounce? What is Silver King in extract going to be worth with silver at $200 an ounce? What is Ethereum's Moroccan assets going to be worth with silver in the ground? And that brings me on to all of those assets also have copper.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on copper?
So copper 5.3 at the time of recording, which I think you said equates to about 11,200 on the ton, which is incredible. I mean, like we were always, I remember a year ago when we were sat in Zambia and it was just sitting below 10,000 and we were getting excited about it punching through and holding above 10,000. And here we are now sitting comfortably above 11,000. And really, a lot of the miners you've just mentioned, or the junior explorers who've got massive copper assets in various locations around the world, have really not seen any, let's say, re-rating in the share price based on the valuation of the fact that copper's not going anywhere in the ground. It's remaining there. It still be processed. It can still be, put through the normal processing facilities and, to produce doré or whatever it is. But yet we're not seeing any price adjustment based on that. And I think it's a matter of time. I think like these juniors who, as you say, the ones you've just alluded to, should have a re-rating based on the valuation of not only just copper, but as you say, silver, gold, and other byproducts. Antimony, we've talked about antimony busting through all-time highs and trading at around $50,000 a ton.
Yeah. I mean, you would go on to extract for that, for the antimony and copper are going to be coming out of the ground for extract. And yeah, it's raised a lot of money so that it can do it. And it's churning through that, I think. But there's no way it's worth what it is at the current scenario. But the one that's startling is Bazant, because ultimately within a period of time, Bazant is going to be producing probably at the old prices, it's going to be producing probably $20 million to $30 million of free cash flow a year. certainly within 12 months and possibly less. And it's got a market cap of what, about £12 million?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. I
It's
don't
absolutely,
understand.
it's mental. Now, what I think people are waiting for is in the coming week, is it? Maybe it's the following week, they're having the general meeting so that they can approve the things that need to be approved so that it can get going. I mean, not that it's stopped, because it hasn't stopped in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, to be honest with you, if you want a 5 to 10 bagger that is almost, we can never say certain, obviously, because you just don't know what's going to happen. But a 5 to 10 bagger that effectively, as long as this process occurs, it's going to be there, because effectively the copper's going to be coming out of the ground. They've got gold as well. They've got silver contribution as well. How on earth is this not going to be worth many times what it is at the minute? If you say it has $25 million free cash flow per annum, that's roughly twice what the current market cap is. And you are then in a situation where you can extend it over 17 kilometers to increase the amount of copper in the ground. Another one coming onto it, which had great news this week and didn't really react, was East Star Resources. They had a drilling and exploration target amount. So it wasn't necessarily a real amount yet, but it's twice the size of Bakuba there in Kazakhstan. And, it did react and it did go up. But in all honesty, they're going to have X thousand tons. I think it's somewhere in the region of 75,000 or more tons of contained copper. And, how much is that going to be worth at 11,200?
Yeah,
it's worth nearly $1 billion.
Yeah.
Right? People have got to start getting their heads around the numbers here, because you got $1 billion asset. Let's say, for the sake of argument, they only make 10% of that value. That's $100 million for something that has a market cap of less than £10 million.
Yeah.
And that's not their only asset. They've just done a big JV with one of the biggest companies in the world for gold, for their snowy asset. And they've got a huge porphyry asset in copper as well, all in Kazakhstan. It's absolutely bizarre, the price that is priced at as well. So you've got Bazan, you've got East Star, you've got Extract, which is crazy. You've got Galileo, which just did a deal with Jubilee now to do that Muffalera project. If you read that yesterday, and Galileo and Jubilee didn't react. Bizarre.
Yeah, crazy.
So now Galileo has option on 23% of basically crap load of copper that's sitting there in a big pile.
I don't know what they're.
Bananas.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see whether we see some sort of Santa rally, as you've alluded to before, because obviously we've gone from what feels like a very bullish market into a bearish. I think we were looking, weren't we, on the fear greed index, and we were at like extreme greed about, I don't know, 3 months ago, and now when you look at the fear to greed index, we're at extreme fear.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't be fearful in the resource sector right now. You should be greedy. I mean, the reality is, in the resource sector, we should be greedy, and yet we've seen all those prices come off, and it doesn't actually make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, because those companies are not the companies that have got £100,000 worth of credit card debt. They've got no debt, and in most cases, they've got loads of assets. So even if they had 100,000 in credit card debt, they could pay it all off with the asset.
Okay, so Bitcoin 90,600. We saw a large drop in Bitcoin. It was down some 20 to 25% on the previous month, and obviously we've seen a recovery. It dropped to around about 78,000. It's currently at 90,580. So it's bounced all back into the 90s. Where do you see it going? I mean, it's almost impossible to call. It's flip-flopping all over the place. But do you think it's going to recover back into the sort of 100, 110, 120 mark again anytime soon, Kev?
I think there's lots of games going on with Bitcoin at the minute. I mean, if you take away the fact that you agree that it is a store of wealth in some way, because it's a limited resource base, if you like, with the 21 million assets. If you take that and put that on one side, the reality is we've got a big thing going on in the US with Master, on the basis that will they be classed as a constituent of the Nasdaq and also I think the S&P 500. Will they be a constituent of those things? Because if they're not, they will not have massive inflows of money, and therefore, they could be in a difficult situation themselves, and therefore, if they have to sell at all, that price is going to crash, and that could be a short-term absolute crap show in Bitcoin. Now that's coming in January, I think. So most people are saying, I don't want to be in this right now.
Yeah.
For that reason, and also, I think the institutions want in big style. And they're willing to manipulate this market to go lower.
Yeah, makes sense. Anything else you want to talk about on the markets before we go on to just wrap up on the week of sports and other bits?
No, I don't want to talk about sports this week.
Oh God, I know. I knew my voice is a little bit hoarse. You can probably hear because I was at Chelsea this week. I went to the Chelsea Barcelona game on Tuesday, and I was shouting so loud. Mate, it was an enjoyable game. Obviously, I'm a neutral anyway, but it was an amazing game of football.
Bravo, Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, they played really well. I mean, I don't know what you thought of the game. I'm sure you watched it. We were sort of exchanging. Yeah, it was enjoyable. Obviously, United got beat by Everton, 10-men Everton as well. So that adds to my woes. And then Arne Slot's woes deepen, as you say. I mean, worst run. What's happened, Kev? 71 years and 9 out of 12 losses.
I don't know. I think we lost a few players that we shouldn't have lost. And the players that we've spent a fortune on are quite obviously not doing it. And more importantly, defensively, we're a disaster.
Yeah.
Attacking wise, we're not brilliant either, because Salah just hasn't been doing what he's been doing in the past. He just doesn't seem himself. I think he's missing Alexander-Arnold more than anybody can guess, to be honest with you. And it proves what a great player he was for Salah. It gave Salah so many opportunities because of Alexander-Arnold. We're definitely missing Luis Diaz. I mean, look what he's doing at Bayern Munich, and you can see. And I have to say, hands up to Arsenal. What a great result against Bayern Munich as well. They took Bayern Munich out. Yeah. So of all the 6 teams that we've got in the Champions League, which is the most any country's ever had, only 2 of the teams won, Chelsea and Arsenal, this week. Liverpool lost, City lost, Tottenham lost against PSG, I think it was, and Newcastle lost as well. So there wasn't a great week for teams in the Champions League in England, but let's see what happens. But I don't know. I haven't got anything positive to say about Liverpool. I think I saw the United-Everton game, and that was Everton were actually playing very well before the 2 players fought each other and one of them got sent off, which was bizarre.
That was
I just slap your own player and get sent off. That's just bizarre. And then, to be honest with you, Everton were the better team, and Everton also obviously really got stuck in with 10 men, and you can't take it away. That goal was an absolute beezer. Like, it was a cracking goal, and then it just didn't have the spark. They just didn't have it. And I can say the same about Liverpool. We've been the same, and when we go down, that's the bad thing about the Liverpool result this week was the heads dropped, and it should never have been 4-1, because we were in with a shout. At 2-1, we were pressing hard to try and get it back to 2-2. And then they ran away and got the 3rd. And then the heads dropped and they scored the 4th. It was... It's not the way we normally do things, to be honest, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and then you've got West Ham today. We've got Palace at midday. And then, obviously, the big game of the weekend is the Chelsea-Arsenal, vying, obviously, at Arsenal leading the Premier League. But
First and second,
but it could bring Chelsea to within something like 3 points. I think they're 6 points ahead at the moment of Arsenal. So, an interesting game there. Chelsea really...
I can see you've become a slight Chelsea favourite fan there now because of your relationship with Mr. Sanchez in goal there. So, but what I would say is, good old Arsenal, it's yours to throw away. So let's put the pressure on.
Well, they threw it away last of the season before, didn't they? When you took it, so
they've thrown it away for quite a few seasons. So will they do it again?
F1, Formula One. I don't know if you saw, but obviously we've
Oh,
got
yes.
the sprint race. Piastri on pole position with Russell in second, and then obviously Lando in third. He ran very wide on his qualifying, but he's managed to get into third position. Verstappen's in sixth position, which is a bit of a shocker because he dominated the sprint races. So I'm really looking forward to the sprint race on Saturday. I'm going to watch that one, but yeah, I mean it's all wide open. 24 points ahead. Obviously, McLaren had a shocker in Vegas when both cars disqualified because of the skid blocks and all the crazy rules on height and ride height and everything. So, what do you make of that, Kev? Who are you going to predict? Just make the prediction now. Who's going to win the Formula One title?
Norris.
Yeah, I'll go Norris.
I mean, he's still a race ahead, isn't he? So he really has to completely mess it up and then not beat them. I mean, I think if the two of them, especially Norris, gets a few points in this sprint race, that will give him a race plus something. And actually, if he does well in this Qatar Grand Prix with the sprint race points, he could seal it. Yeah. It could be done in Qatar.
Yeah, he needs to get some. He needs to get a 1, 2, or 3 on the sprint race. So first 8 points, second 7 points, third 6, and then so on all the way down to 8th with 1 point, and then everything from 9th down would receive 0. Obviously, I don't know if you saw, but Hamilton didn't even qualify for the sprint race. He was out, mate. I mean, it's shocking. It really is. He's had a nightmare of a season.
Did the other Ferrari qualify?
Yeah, Leclerc's in there. He's in the qualifier, so he's through to the sprint race. But yeah, it's an absolute.
So he can't really say it's the car then, can he? Because Leclerc's doing it, but Ferrari's had a terrible season.
If Lando takes this one, then he'll add another 8 points, so he'll go 32 points in the lead, and then obviously he needs to fare well in the actual main race.
No, he won't go 32 points because it depends on what Piastri gets as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. If he didn't, so yeah.
He needs to be going into the race tomorrow, 25 points plus potentially. What's the difference between first and second? Is it 25 and 18? Is it?
Yeah, it's 25, 18, and 15.
So he needs to be one full 25 plus 7 points ahead of Piastri, and he can basically be second in the race tomorrow and win.
Yeah.
If he wins tomorrow and he's more than 18 points ahead already, then it's his.
Yeah.
So we will see.
So anything else going on this week, Kev?
Yes, there's a big IPO. Well, I can't say big, but there's an IPO going on Monday for Delta Gold Technologies. I'm meeting up with the guys in London on Monday at the end of business. And yeah, I think that one's going to be very interesting. So watch this space. We're all going to be talking about it, I think, over the next week or two. It's got 58 million shares in issue, all nice and clean. It's going to be starting off at 10p. There's been an IPO at 10p. There was a pre-IPO at 5p, which had about £500,000 invested in it. It's just raised £2.5 million now. So there's £3 million in cash gone into that £5.8 million valuation as we speak now. And effectively what it does in very, very simple terms is it's using the nanostate of gold to try and stabilize the qubit in quantum computing. So it's technology play completely. But how they're doing that is very novel in terms of they're getting all the knowledge base IP from the universities. They've signed up Toronto University. You can read this in the prospectus yourself. And their plan is that they're going to sign up quite a few other universities so that they have the IP on this area in the world. And I look at it and say this type of technology company should be worth 20 to 50 million pounds. And I spoke with the CEO and he sort of agreed with me that this is the normal valuation for this type of company.
Good.
So let's see how it all pans out. Should be exciting. Have a watch.
Look out for that one, yeah.
Oliver Friesen from Guardian Metal is involved in this very heavily. Because the CEO is also involved in Guardian Metal Resources. So yeah, there you go. Watch this space.
Good. On that note, if you like what you've heard, please do subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get any future notifications of further episodes, and have a great weekend all. Speak to you next week.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.